What is going on, everyone? It's your guy Cole Jackson back here on Road Graders, and today we are going to be getting you set up for the Baltimore Ravens visit to Buffalo, the path for vengeance. We're going to be bringing in a very special guest to focus on the schematic matchups. This is kind of a preview that's going to be entirely focused on scheme and where some of those scheme advantages are, where are the key matchups that you guys need to keep your eyes on. Before we jump into it, I do want to say a big thank you to our sponsors of this episode. It is Profit X. Profit X will give you a different experience in the sports betting market. They flip it on its head. It's America's #1 sports prediction market where you play against peers, not the house. Because it's peer-to-peer, you'll get the best prices on spreads, totals, money lines, and player props. It looks and feels like the apps you already know. It just has better odds. Who doesn't want more money? And right now, ProfitX is giving you up to $200 in profit cash in your first 30 days using promo code Road Graders when you sign up at the link down in the description below or on the ProfitX app. Go check it out. Trust me, it will be well worth it. And I'd love to now introduce my good friend. It's Anthony Prohaska from the Disguised Coverage, the Cover One network that you all know and love. I work really closely with them. They've become my frenemies, enemies in the sense that Buffalo and Baltimore have this rivalry heating up, but obviously my good friends in terms of sharing love for all things film, whether it comes to draft or getting ready for these matchups. So Anthony, my guy, how's it doing? How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. I told you this offline, but I'm super pumped to be here. I respect your work so much. You and I have talked for, I think, the last 3 years or so, kind of just meeting on Twitter and talking ball on the DMs and on Twitter itself. And I respect your work so much and your knowledge of the game, that your schematic knowledge, and being able to talk ball with someone like you is really awesome for me. And yeah, to have it be this week, Bills Ravens, the rivalry it's developed into Sunday night prime time. Just so fun. I like how you labeled it in the intro, like the path to vengeance. It's just so cool. I'm just pumped to be here.
Yeah, and it's the same as last year. We kind of opened week one against traveling to Arrowhead to take on Kansas City, the team that bumped us in 2023, and now it's more of the same with chasing that vengeance. And I know a lot of people are sick of the Baltimore Ravens revenge tour. I think we're ready to just get over this damn hump, as I'm sure Buffalo fans are as well. I mean, it's one of those things where there's so much divisiveness when you look online between the fan bases, but the reality of the situation is Baltimore is in a very similar situation as Buffalo, where they have elite quarterbacks that overcame so much media adversity, and now they're just struggling to get over the Kansas City hump.
Yeah, I think there's more similarities than people care to acknowledge or recognize at this point, because it's become so, like you said, divisive and contentious, whether it's the Bills bouncing the Ravens in the playoffs, but really so much of it is the MVP conversation and discourse, which has become so fan heated and extreme. And yeah, we should be bonding over the fact that we've both been miserable in the playoffs the last several years, and the Chiefs are super annoying, and that fan base is worse than both of Ravens and Bills combined. And yeah, it's disappointing when, again, you and I were talking about this offline, when I think Bills fans and Ravens fans will look back on this 10 years from now, 15 years from now, and on each side be like, you know what? I didn't appreciate how cool the other team was enough. And I say that to Bills fans all the time, as a football lover, first and foremost, the Ravens are one of the most fun studies in the game with what they do offensively, what they do defensively, how Eric DaCosta took over for Ozzie and how he's continued to build this roster and how they identify talent, what they look for, how they build. And yeah, it's one of those things that you get caught up in the emotion of it while you're in the trenches with it. And then you look back and go, you know what? I didn't appreciate that enough for what it was at the time.
Absolutely nailed it. And that's really what we're going to be focusing on. We're going to be jumping into kind of the schematics, what each team is going to look to exploit. This is the most fun part of following this team week to week, and being able to bring someone on that has that in-depth knowledge. We just appreciate so much here. So we're going to start kind of looking at the Baltimore Ravens offense versus the defense. I'll just kind of throw this up. We'll kind of toggle it in and out, but I'm going to be focusing on what I think is really the key matchup. And I always do this. I put the trench line in there where it specifically says where the game is won. That's what we do here on Road Graders. That's our focus, is in those trenches. And that's where this conversation is really going to start, because I think the key matchup that the Ravens really need to win is with their guards versus the Buffalo defensive tackles. And I think That was one of the major advantages in that playoff game in Buffalo. I think, whether it was Oliver or, Jones or whoever was kind of cycling in on the D line, the way they one gapped against the run, I think really blew up specifically the right side of the line. Falele and Rosengarten trying to overtake blocks on the backside really created some, penetration opportunities for the D line, and also really messed up their ability to get combo blocks. And that opened up opportunities for Milano and Bernard to kind of step in and make cleanup tackles. And I found it very frustrating because the Ravens had such a good option run game against Pittsburgh the week before. And then they go into Buffalo and they just don't use it. Like, it was absolutely maddening to watch. And so that's really where I'm focusing, because I think Voorhees and Falele, obviously we're getting Voorhees, returning as a starter in the sense that, McCary kind of stole his job last year. And so they got a little bit of new blood there. He's still pretty inexperienced. And so we know some of the issues here in the Ravens fan base with Daniel Falele and some of his athletic limitations. So, that's really where my focus is going to be early in this game. I really think they need to win those trenches. And I think one of the most underrated parts of this is, especially when they're running a zone scheme in the run game, if you have guards that are just struggling to overtake blocks, whether it's athletic or technical limitations, it really reduces the high ceiling of Tyler Linderbaum, because if you can't overtake a block to unleash him into the second level, it just takes away what his true upside is. So that's what I think Buffalo did so well. They penetrated, they took away that ability. They had to, run an extra yard or two with a double team. They can't get their guy off the combo block.
I love that point. And, you've got a couple here. I've got a couple here. If I had to pick one thing to watch on this side of the ball, it would be your first point there. And so much of it is really for the Bills all year. And you hit on it, like kind of what they did against the Ravens. Everything for them on the interior is penetration, one gap, shooting. There were the rumors that Tyleik Williams from Ohio State, he said the Bills told him if he was available at the end of round one they were going to take him. He is very much kind of the antithesis of what they look like at defensive tackle. They want their guys to play the run, but if push comes to shove, they're looking for inside rush more than they are run defenders.
Yeah, and he's like your traditional two gap nose tackle, hold, shed, block, like that sort of thing. Yeah.
Gum up the works, handle the double team. He had some athletic ability that could allow him, and athletic ability and being able to push dudes back so he could collapse the pocket a bit, but not really a pass rush guy. And again, that's not what the Bills go for. If anything, it's inside rush over run defense. And that's because they want gap shooters, they want penetrators, they want guys who can rush the QB, but then against the run, they want guys who can shoot and cause that havoc. And it's such a give and take, because when it works, you're blowing up the play in the backfield. Like the Bills were one of the leaders in stuffs and stuff rate last year, which are runs that went for 0 or less yards. They're getting tackles for loss. They're causing problems. But then if it doesn't work out, you're getting the first play in Baltimore last year where the Ravens run crunch and the trap hits and the wham hits and Henry's out the gate untouched and it's a 70-plus yard house call.
How beautiful was that from a schematic perspective, though?
So everything, you see the pull, you see Ricard, bang,
Andrews.
Bang. Dude, clean. Andrews climbs. Rasul Douglas is the unblocked man for the Bills. He gets a little too far outside, tries to come back in the gap, but there's no shot. That in general, like that run, and there's really nice aesthetic things that happen in football, but when a really nice gap concept hits, it's so aesthetically pleasing. Like when counter hits or power or crunch, especially, and crunch has worked against the Bills because Ed Oliver and co., they want to get upfield on the inside, and all of a sudden you step up and you're getting ear-holed by somebody trapping or whamming you. And I think that's such a key issue for the Bills this year because they leaned into more of the inside rush and penetrators. They got TJ Sanders after they didn't get Tyleik Williams. They brought in Deion Walker from Kentucky, who's a huge mountain of a man, but he's, despite the size, he is a penetrator. He is a shooter. The only true like gum up the works guy they have, like a true kind of one tech, is Daquan Jones. Everyone else is more three techs that might moonlight as a one. So they want penetration. And when it works, it's pretty. If not, you're getting displaced horizontally. Or if you run downhill, Sanders and Walker struggle dropping the knee or anchoring, reducing surface area, however you want to look at it. the Bills have a propensity on the interior of getting blown off the ball. So it's either penetrate and win, or it's manhandled and displaced, and it's scary.
Well, so we went back through the runs last year because I was kind of curious of like, was there a tendency that the Ravens, specifically in the first quarter, because I think Henry's first 5 runs, I think went for like a total of 7 yards or something. Might have been less actually. And so I was like, what was it? And they came out with 3 of those runs were just zone, and which you're penetrating against zone, you can blow up those combo blocks, and that's where you create those number advantages. But then the Ravens started to have success when they switched to power, and that's what I noticed the most because if you can when you hit those down blocks on guys that are penetrating, if they don't mess up your puller, which did happen on one of those plays, it was Falele got knocked back into McCary on a pull. But if you can kind of wash those penetrators, then you've just sealed them, right? And then you're creating that kind of back lane for the puller. So that was something that I noticed, and I even going back to the first game, they ran a little bit more gap than they were most of the rest of the season rather than zone. And it really worked well against that. So that's something I'd look to as well as kind of the run game choice. And again, I mentioned it earlier, but the Ravens not using any option plays, like literally not one option play in the playoffs was absurd to me because Lamar scored on one in that first game. He also had a 19-yard run in that first game. So 2 big explosive plays off the option concepts. They destroyed Pittsburgh with it. Pittsburgh was in, like, they had Patrick Queen and just a mental pretzel.
Yeah, he was in hell.
And, like, that was horrible. Well, it was great for us, but it was horrible to watch from a linebacker perspective. And then you go into Buffalo and you don't do it once. Like, I don't know if they're worried about the ball being wet at the mesh point, but I mean, they fumbled anyway, so did it really matter?
Yeah, fair. No, it's a great call. And that interior piece, the gap scheme piece, I think is top tier. You leading off with that, it's something I echo and second completely. And to the last point, like for that, the Bills' best, you look at DVOA and they were good against the run, or even overall EPA per play against the run. But if you really look at it and watch them game in and game out, the Bills' best run defense last year was game script. It was getting opponents down and having them go, we got to abandon the run. If not, the way they stopped the run was gapping out, and they had to win with math and they had to win with numbers. And if that's what they have to do against Baltimore, you're going to be in trouble because of the play action, because of Lamar, because of the threats on the outside, and some things for the Bills that I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, I love that piece from you. Great leadoff piece. And that ties a little bit into my first one, which is the Bills' third down defense. There's a lot of metrics. I'm not going to bog everyone down with them, but long story short, if you go with any third down metric last year, advanced or raw, the Bills were terrible. Like I'm like EPA per play, EPA per pass, EPA per rush. Third down, they were not good. Conversion rate, everything is bad. Bottom of the league, like arguably the worst. 3rd and 7, even worse. So you've got an offense behind the sticks. They're worse on 3rd and 7 than they are on overall third downs, which is bad because they were already bad on overall third downs. They need to be able to win on early downs and mitigate what you're getting from the Ravens offense. You cannot allow Lamar and this offense in general to put you in that consistent run pass conflict. You have to try and silo somewhere, somehow. I think Lamar gets too much of a bad rap as a passer, but you've got to try and make him be a passer only. You have to force those known or true drop back scenarios where you're not worried about play action or boots or moving the pocket. Like, know what you're going to get, whether it's under center or shotgun. You need to kind of create that for the Bills. And the Bills did that last year at times. But then when they got teams in those situations on third downs, they didn't capitalize, and it was worse. Right. And I'm worried about this.
So did you attribute that more to the pass rush, like lack of pass rush getting home, or is it soft coverage, or
it's literally both, which is terrible. They had such a disconnect between pass rush and coverage where you would get guys that would win up front and you'd be like, oh, sweet. And the ball's coming out in 1.75 or 2 seconds. And I know this because I timed it. I'm literally watching plays and I'm timing it. So the ball's coming out in like 2 seconds or quicker. And then there's other times where the coverage holds up and nobody's getting home, or the pocket isn't compromised, or somebody shoots in, quarterback escapes, and he's kind of just making something happen off script and he finds somebody. There was such a disconnect between the rush game getting home and the coverage game. And it was such a problem. We even saw it a bit on Hard Knocks. Bobby Babich in one of the clips talked about the marriage of coverage and rush. It's been a struggle for the Bills the last several years. It's part of the reason why I wanted them to bring in a corner that could play more press, play more man. They need to restrict airspace on the back end while also being able to get home up front, obviously. But it was such a struggle for them in a multitude of ways last year. And if you can't stop the run, and then if you also are trying to stop it and you can't get off the field on third down, it's just a recipe for failure. And it killed them a bunch last year.
Well, and I'm assuming that's part of the strategy of bringing in Bosa, because Bosa has never been necessarily like, for how good he was specifically between 2019 and 2021, where I think he was 7th in the NFL in total pressures over those 3 years, but he was never a high sack guy. Like he had double digits, I think 4 times, but I don't think he ever went over 12. And so, but he's incredibly disruptive because of his speed to power conversion. And I just did a video on that this morning, and how he collapses pockets, and that, that inside hand, he consistently attacks the inside armpit with his inside hand and gets that knockback on tackles. And
he's so good at knowing like where the QB is going to land in their depth, in their drop. He's good at reading tackle sets and angles. Like it's
that wide alignment, right? He's forcing them into 45s and then attacking that, or sorry, he's forcing them into verticals, attacking that inside hand. And
he almost kind of like plods a little bit with his stance, which makes the tackles almost kind of get like their hands and their feet lose sync, because it's kind of like, how are you coming at me here? And then bang, he's going through you. It's like an unorthodox, non-sexy win based off of like angles and science and power. And it's fun.
It's interesting because he was, I think he led the league 2 years in a row with quarterback hits, but not in sacks. And that's what I find so interesting. So it's like, he's not getting home, but he's causing a lot of disruption. It reminds me a lot of what we saw in Baltimore in 2023 with Jadeveon Clowney, where, I think he got up to, I think he hit 11. But his disruption and the impact it had on the defense was, you wouldn't find it in the numbers. You'd have to watch it. And that's what we focus so much on this channel with, because that disruption is so beneficial to the rest of the defense. And that's what I'll be really focused on. Now, the Ravens, when they played the Chargers last year, week 8, week 9, week 10. No, it was Thanksgiving. So it was later in the year, week 13. It was the Harbaugh game. And I think Ronnie and Roger did pretty well against him in that game. So I'll be interested to kind of see what it looks like. But having Bosa come out on third down across from Rizzo, I think that's a really good setup for Buffalo.
Yeah, that's what he's been brought in to do. You need him to be the closer that they kind of wanted Von Miller to be, and which Von Miller was before he got hurt. And then the past couple of years, not really able to kind of be that. I know the metrics, someone may see that and be like, oh, but the metrics show that Von Miller was great as a pass rusher. I think the metrics are a bit of a lie. The tape says it shows a different story. But yeah, they need that. Rousseau is a really good player, but as a pure pass rusher, he's more of an edge 2 than he is an edge 1. He's more of a Robin than he's a Batman.
He's Odafe Owe. It's funny. They were drafted like a few picks apart, and they're so damn similar. Where it's like, again, it's a guy that's going to get some pressure, doesn't quite consistently win though, really good against the run, but isn't necessarily going to wow you. And that's exactly why the Ravens go out and get Mike Green, right? Because they want that true pass rusher.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to also what the Bills did on their front. Like, you wanted more guys who could penetrate and cause havoc and let Rousseau clean up with his size and length, or let Rousseau, who's still progressing as a pass rusher, use his size and length, collapse the pocket, condense, compress, all that kind of stuff, and allow Bosa to clean that up, or Sanders to clean that up, or Larry Ogunjobi or Michael Hoyt when they come back from suspension. But it's definitely something to watch, because the Bills have added so much up front between free agency and the draft, and it's still an unknown right now at this point in terms of pressure generation and then actually getting home, and then even more so marrying it with the coverage on the back end.
And I think it's going to be interesting. So we'll kind of move into our next one, and that's going to be, I guess Trey White didn't practice yesterday, so it might be Ingram on the other outside cornerback spot across from Christian Benford with Taron Johnson in the slot. But I think with Isaiah Likely not playing in this game, and the possibility that Lucas Scott gets called up to fill in for Patrick Ricard, who also didn't practice, the Ravens are probably going to have to live in 11 a little bit more than they have traditionally. I think they played the lowest amount of 11 last year in the NFL. They lived in 12. They lived in 21, which could be called 12 because Ricard lines up as a tight end more than anything nowadays. So even 22, the playoff numbers were a little like they played a lot of 21-22 in the playoff game, but I think a lot of that was like they played more I formation than we'd seen all year, just with it being kind of the conditions. So I don't want to lean too much into that. But the big addition here is obviously DeAndre Hopkins, where he's going to provide that kind of outside wide receiver spot. And now you kind of have a pretty legit trio with Hopkins, Flowers, and Bateman. And I think that's going to create a mismatch for the Ravens where they can kind of attack whether it's Trey White or Ingram as that other corner. And that's, when we're talking about those third and long situations, their ability to get separation, DeAndre Hopkins' ability to still make kind of contested catches or big catches. I think that's really where there's an opportunity for the Ravens. So maybe I think our fans don't have as much insight on Ingram. Like, what can you kind of tell us about him? What are kind of your thoughts on Trey White and, kind of the outside corner depth that you guys have?
I don't think Trey White plays in this game. Like you alluded to, he didn't practice yesterday. And I just think given his veteran status, the injuries he's had in his career, and specifically this matchup where he's going to see work in the pass, but he's also going to have to defend the run pretty vigorously. I don't see him being 100% for this game, and I don't think it makes sense to trot him out if he's not 100%. So I don't expect him to play. Jamarcus Ingram is somebody who I like. He's got inside-outside versatility. He started as more of a nickel when he first came to Buffalo. He's been a practice squad guy through the years, but last year they had Taron Johnson got banged up in the opening game against the Cardinals, and with Milano being out on third downs, they played a bunch of dime, which they traditionally don't do. And Jamarcus Ingram was that dime guy. He played well against Arizona. He had a pick 6 against the Miami Dolphins, had a couple really nice reps against Tyreek Hill, manning up on him. He's not this all-world coverage guy. He will battle. He's physical. He can play press. He's going to want to get into dudes, but he's really good as a run-defending corner. And that's why I want him to be the starter in this game if Trey White is out, because Christian Benford, very good corner. He's a bit banged up as well, but it looks like he'll play. Benford, I think, is legitimately a top 10 corner in the league, but he's one of the better run-defending corners as well. And so in this game, if you've got Benford on one side and Jamarcus Ingram on the other, their ability as force players, but also as just general run fitters and being able to come up and make tackles, even against someone like Henry, or gum up the works and slow him down and allow the other guys to rally and tackle. I think Ingram would matter a lot in this game and would help out a lot, given just the nature of what we're going to see from the Ravens. And it's really unfortunate if Ricard also misses time, especially in tandem with Likely, because that schematic piece is so interesting. And it also ties into like my second point here as well. The Ravens are such a unicorn with what they can be in from a personnel grouping and just what hell they can kind of put you into. And so if Ricard and Likely are out, I think that creates a benefit potentially for the Bills, because
100%.
Those
100%.
heavier packages for the Ravens are a nightmare for most teams, but especially the Bills. Like, the Bills are a nickel defense. Their linebackers are smaller and lighter with Bernard and Milano. We talked about the interior being more penetration based and gap shooting. The last thing the Bills want is to see this heavy personnel packaging and grouping coming at them and trying to push them off the ball, which can happen. If the Ravens have to live in 11, I do think it's more advantageous, I'll say, to the Bills, because they can stay in nickel and battle. But on the opposite side, then who's your corner 2? Are they able to hold their own with Bateman and or Hopkins? If Zay Flowers is operating out of the slot, Taron Johnson is an all-pro corner, but speed and shiftiness can be somewhat of a problem for him with the type of corner that he is. I was already very interested in the personnel battle and how the Ravens could dictate to the Bills. I figured we'd see more heavier stuff. I figured we'd see more 3 linebacker looks with Dorian Williams replacing Taron Johnson, but more on the line of scrimmage as like a traditional Sam linebacker like they did in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But if the Ravens stay in 11, I think that is advantage Bills to a degree with what the Ravens can't get to. And then that starts kind of the chess piece of, okay, but the Bills are really, even if Trey White is out, Max Hairston, their rookie corner from Kentucky, is also out. So whoever starts at corner 2 is really their 4th corner on the depth chart. Can the Ravens take advantage of that? How does it offset not being able to go heavy and the run pass conflict they put teams in with the heavy looks? It's really interesting on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and I think I expected last year when they brought in Henry that they'd play a little bit more 11 and run out of 11, especially with Todd Monken's tendency to want to run zone. And They just never did it. Like they didn't do it to the degree I thought they would. So it was an advantage that I saw on paper, but they just didn't execute. But again, that requires your offensive line to make those combo blocks, especially with less help on the inside. So you got to create those numbers games. You got to especially take care of the backside because that's what Derrick Henry's done so well in his career. Is it's everyone always talks about him as a power runner, but he's actually more of a finesse runner, as crazy as it sounds, because when he hits those backside cuts and then he's hitting stiff arms on everybody and he's just so damn hard to tackle running laterally in the open field. Like it's so difficult. So it'll be really interesting to see how they can kind of match that up. But I do think the Ravens losing, they will call up Lucas Scott. I think he's a very interesting guy. He's a former offensive lineman for Navy that kind of converted into a fullback. So he's very much in that Patrick Ricard type mold. I'm not going to go as far as saying he's, at that level or anywhere near it, of course. Patrick Ricard is truly a unicorn.
Yeah.
But, though I was pretty happy with what he did in the preseason as a UDFA. I was really glad when they kept him around on practice squad. So we'll see. I think he'll probably be one of the practice squad elevations for this game because they'll have to replace their ability to, play heavy, and not even to get into the fact that they just literally don't have enough tight ends now with, Pat I always list him as a tight end because he seems to fit that role more nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah. He's more offline and kind of like the F and the move guy.
It's like an H-back, right?
So.
Like, yeah. So we'll kind of jump into the defense now. So this will be obviously Baltimore Ravens defense versus the Bills offense. And what I think the biggest piece here is for the Ravens where they can create a tactical advantage is the addition of Malachi Starks, their ability to play a little bit more single high than they were comfortable doing last year. They kind of after week 10 said enough of this getting burnt deep. We're going to play a little bit more split safety look with Kyle Hamilton. We're going to bench Marcus Williams. We're going to put him out there with our Darius Washington. And I think the addition of Starks does a few things. It'll allow them to play a little bit more single high and get Kyle Hamilton down into the overhang across from Marlon Humphrey. And I think this is a big piece because what didn't get enough attention was how good the Bills' run game was in that playoff game. And it wasn't even so much just James Cook. It was Ray Davis I think he averaged 6.2 in that game. It was Ty Johnson who averaged 5.8, if I recall correctly. I might be off on those, but they were both over 5. One was over 6. And those were big carries in the context of that game. And so the Ravens played the run D terribly. And I think their ability to bring Kyle down and kind of that hunter killer drone that they did in 2023 will be a big addition. And I think Malachi Starks is able to kind of play a little single high, play a little cover 3, take up that kind of middle of the field and drop Hamilton down as a robber. I think it'll go a long way in terms of creating an advantage for the Ravens defense.
I love this point, and I'm in lockstep with you. If you're like the Bills or anybody really in the NFL, I think it's super unfair that Malachi Starks fell to the Ravens and then the Ravens were able to pair him with Kyle Hamilton. Hamilton is all world and a unicorn in and of himself, but to be able to allow him to play closer to the line of scrimmage and in and around the box and take advantage of that athleticism and his mismatch capability and knowing you can do that with having a center fielder like Starks who sees the game well from depth, has the range, the anticipation, can read route distributions. I think that's such a great point. And it's going to be hard for the Bills to have an answer when Hamilton is in the box. They didn't in the regular season last year, but being able to stack the box is really a way to kind of gum up what the Bills do. Their run game, like you mentioned, very good last year and also very diverse. They're a really good duo team. They're a really good mid-zone weak team. They're a really good team with pulling their tackles. They don't pull their guards. They did a little bit this preseason and in camp. We saw some more traditional counter and power, but when they're pulling, it's the tackles. It's Spencer Brown. It's Deion Dawkins. They're running dart where one of them's pulling, looking to get to that front side linebacker. It's tackle long trap where the front side guy's leaving the edge and one of them's pulling and kicking him out. They lean into the mobility and physicality of their tackles. Really good gap scheme ability, but good zone as well. They can present them the same. They'll run duo and mid-zone weak out of the exact same personnel and same look. Just run duo to the tight end side, mid-zone weak, obviously to the weak side. But being able to change the math with having Hamilton in and around the box, knowing how good Marlon Humphrey was in the nickel last year and playing the run and what he can be. And I think that ties into really well how you can slow down the Bills offense, which is don't let that run game get going, crowd the box, don't let them win with the run. And now you might say like, yeah, but then if you're going single high, your corners are on the outside. That's what the Bills need to prove they can beat. The back-to-back weeks last year, the Ravens did it, the Texans did it the next week. And both those defenses have good and or athletic corners. Both the Ravens and Texans said, you know what? We're going to play single high. We're going to mitigate the run, and we're going to dare you to find someone on the outside that can beat us outside and or deep. And they couldn't do that with regularity. And Allen struggled with the deep ball last year. They struggled with separation. They struggled to have guys win there. They're hoping Keon Coleman can make the jump and be that guy this year, and or Josh Palmer can be that guy. But I love that point from you, because you can walk Kyle Hamilton down and let him be a monster in that role anyway. But then it also pairs well with stopping the Bills and playing single high. The Bills saw the most single high in the league last year at 61.8%. The Ravens saw the fifth most at 58%. And both those teams, Ravens and Bills, saw a lot of single high because of the prevalence of their run game. But the Bills also saw it because teams weren't scared of getting beat on the outside by the receivers or getting beat deep. And so knowing that you've got guys that are going to try and have to beat Wiggins, or even if it's Wouzier, or maybe it's Jair if he's ready to go, and then you've got Starks patrolling deep, but then you've still got that second level of athleticism where it's Humphrey to Roquan to Trenton Simpson to Kyle Hamilton. You're monkeying with Shakir. You're monkeying with Dalton Kincaid. Can they beat Hamilton? Can they beat Humphrey? It's a real fun chess match there, and I think it might lean towards Baltimore because we don't know if anybody on the Bills outside can win because it's an unknown at this point.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And again, like it really came down to where I think the Bill, like we just talked about it on the other side of the ball, but the Bills' ability in that game last year for their offensive line, specifically their interior, to win that line of scrimmage made a huge difference. Like we know Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. Spencer Brown took that leap last year. That's a top 3 tackle duo in the NFL right now. And, you know, I don't know, maybe only the Eagles, a healthy Chargers duo of Slater and Alt maybe is up there with them, but that it might be second in terms of, you know, best tackle duos. But I thought what really helped the Bills win that playoff game was that interior of Edwards, McGovern, and Torrance. I think they had a hell of a game. And that's really where I was looking for kind of my second key matchup is I need Travis Jones to be a game wrecker in this one from the one tech. And, you know, he had moments last year. He's had moments throughout his career where he is a game wrecker, and he hasn't consistently put together everything. And I think that's what I'm looking for with Michael Pierce gone. They need Travis Jones to take that step. Their backup is John Jenkins, who is just kind of a gap eater at this point in his career. So if they want to stop this run game, kind of doing what we just talked about that the Bills did on defense to the Ravens, I think Travis Jones needs to be that guy that's going to muck up the middle, create some of those opportunities for linebackers to stay clean and get up into their gaps. Because that's one thing about Rowe. As good as Rowe is, he's an undersized guy, and he wants to, you know, be able to shoot gaps and, you know, be able to be relatively clean. And Trenton Simpson has been a huge question mark. He's a guy that struggled reading his keys in the past. He's athletic as all hell. He runs sideline to sideline. He does a lot of the things that you want, but he just isn't there mentally. And so I think their D-line's ability to keep them clean will be very pivotal in creating, you know, that matchup disparity that we're talking about. Because even if we have the outside containment, which I think sets up really well, Mike Green's a really good run defender. Kyle Van Noy is pretty solid. Odafe always pretty solid. We know what Humphrey and Hamilton can do from kind of the slot alignment, but it's that interior piece where they need to take care of business. They need to keep their linebackers clean.
Yeah, I love this point. This ties into my second one really well. Like, and actually ties into our first pieces as well. Like you're talking about Kyle Hamilton down in that overhang. I'm talking about the Bills wide receivers. Can they win outside and deep? Like, how does it tie into that piece? But then this piece also ties into that as well. You know, mine is more just overall the Bills run game and personnel versus the Ravens front. You've got this Bills offense that last year made the switch schematically. They trade Stephon Diggs, and it's like, hey, we're leading into bigger body types at wide receiver. Keon Coleman, Mac Hollins, where
ton of 6 O-line too. Like they love that 6 offensive line.
They led the league in it in terms of total snaps with it. They also led the league in like EPA per pass with it. That's where they got the most creative too when it came to like running get like traditional counter and power, but it wasn't really traditional. They'd run counter, but they would send Alec Anderson. He'd be like the offline tight end, but he's really a 6 offensive lineman. They, towards the end of the year, they'd send him in blast motion and then pull someone else with him and run like, so it presents as like GY or GF counter where he's the G, but it's just they're sending him on blast motion initially. And he's banged up. We'll see what his health looks like into this game. But for as much as the Ravens are a unicorn on offense, the Bills kind of had that as well, like bigger bodied wide receivers,
Yep.
6 offensive linemen, Reggie Gilliam, 12 personnel, even though Kincaid really isn't the blocker that you want him to be. So I'm interested with how they line up and what kind of conflict that puts the Ravens front into. Do the Ravens have to bring a safety down because they need the numbers to stop the run? Or are they just bringing it safety down because they can, because nobody's winning on the outside? And then the individual matchups, this Bills O-line, I like the point you mentioned with the tackles, and it ties into this O-line as a whole. The Bills O-line is very good as a pass protecting group, but then as a run group as well because of the diversity they have. But that Ravens front, you mentioned several pieces. One of the key takeaways I had coming out of the divisional game, I was like, oh, Tavius Robinson's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Like, they've just got a really nice rotation and combination of athleticism, physicality, run defense, some pass rush pop. And then that's not even getting into the second level and technically the third, but second if you're bringing Hamilton down. And everything for this Bills offense starts with the run. Josh Allen is the MVP, cool, fun, passing the ball is sexy. Running the football matters a ton in the NFL today, and the Bills are a prime example of that. They are established the run the football, grind teams down, and work off of that. They are not built to spread you out and pass 35 times a game. They want to run the ball and pass maybe 20 to 25 or maybe 25 to 30. And they also were a team that didn't take advantage of play action last year. 18% play action rate, 27th in the league. I thought that was criminal with how good their run game is. I think they might need to do that more in this game, especially if the Ravens are walking down a safety and they're comfortable winning the matchups outside. You got to find a way to loosen things up, create some space between the second and third level, or create some explosives somehow. More play action, more boots, move the pocket, especially if you're getting your butt kicked up front by the Ravens, which may or may not happen. Yeah, I think this is it. It's so funny, like these 4 points on this side of the ball from us, they all like weave into one another to tell the whole story. And winning in one area can create a drastic change in any of the other three.
And this is exactly what coaches sit there and think through when they're getting ready for these matchups. And that's why I absolutely love, like, football is just one of those sports unlike any other where it is just such a chess match. Everybody's trying to react to what did they just do? Now, what do we do? And then it's a reaction to the reaction.
Do they know how we're going to respond? Do they think that we think that they know what we know? So are we trying to change it? Are we galaxy braining ourselves too much? Is this like, are we zigging when we should zag? Should we keep zigging? Yeah, it's just like, it's so fun, but also like so stressful.
I love it. I love it. Well, oh my God. Well, for a first episode, dude, this was absolutely phenomenal. I know our fan base, my watchers are going to appreciate this so much. So please, quickly give our guys a little bit of a taste of what you have coming up. Let us know where we can find you, because that's one thing about the work that Anthony does. It's not just Bills focused. You can go to him to just learn basic X's and O's. It's more than just Buffalo Bills football. It's football in general. It's why a lot of you guys follow me. I highly encourage you to go follow him on Twitter. Check out the work that he's doing. The work that Cover One does in general for the Buffalo Bills fan base is phenomenal. I learned so much watching them. I've been, blessed to be able to be good friends with guys like Aaron and Anthony and Eric and Greg, like just phenomenal guys over there. So please go check them out. But Anthony, let us know where we can find you and what you have coming up.
Yeah, find me on Twitter at pro__ant. So pro_ANT. If you're on Blue Sky, you can find me there as well. Same thing, pro_ant, no underscores there, just PROANT. Everything for me is film focused, analytics focused. It's objective. I know there's, a Bills lens to it, but there's no homerism for me. Everything is just objective. I watch a ton of tape across the league. So if you follow me on socials, it's clips of the Bucs run game and why I love it, the Packers run game and why I love it, the Cardinals defense and why I think it's so cool. Everything for me just comes down to the tape study, evaluation of roles, responsibilities, scheme, structure, X's and O's. So whether that's league wide or with my Bills focus shows, I host a show called Disguise Coverage live every Tuesday night on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern, and then uploaded the pod apps after. And then I also co-host a show called The Film Room that's live every Wednesday. That one is all film based and breaking everything down. And I do a lot of film on my channel as well. I did a Cole Bishop breakdown last week, just hit evaluation of him and talking about what post safety responsibilities are and what cover one lurk is and all of that kind of stuff. So if you like scheme and structure and X's and O's and tape analysis of anything and everything, I'm your guy. And yeah, this was awesome. I appreciate the hell out of you for having me. I had a great time.
And now everybody can see why me and Anthony have become such good buddies over the years. So thank you so much for joining us. And as always, to our sponsor, ProfitX, be sure to check them out. Use promo code RoadGraders to get some cash, more cash in your pocket, bigger bets, bigger winnings, all that good stuff. And as always, be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Peace out, everyone.